Well, good afternoon all, and a very happy new year. Welcome to the first Vale of Glamorgan Cabinet meeting of 2023 on the 5th of January. I'm Councillor Liz Burnett and chair of the meeting as leader of the Vale of Glamorgan Council and cabinet member for performance and resources. May I remind all present that the meeting's being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing. So all participants should mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback. And if anyone wishes to speak, they should either raise their hand on screen or using the digital function. The chat function, as always, should only be used to highlight any technical issues and or potentially to attract the attention of the chair or Democratic Services Officer. Today will be a hopefully very short meeting with just 2 agenda items. So without further ado, I shall move on. I shall just move things around on my screens. And the agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. And at the moment, I only have one apology, and that's from Councillor Wilkinson, who unfortunately is unwell today. Eddie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to point out that I've got a Welsh Government meeting this afternoon, it's the 2:30. So unfortunately, as these things clash, if it's all right with you, permission to leave on that basis.
Definitely, it's essential that our voice is heard within Welsh Government circles, isn't it? So moving on to agenda item 2, that's declarations of interest. Do we have any today? No, don't have any declarations of interest. And agenda item 3 is the housing revenue account budget proposals for 2023-24 and rent setting for 23-24. If I can just bring that report over onto my screen. So I think there needs to be some clarification about what the housing revenue account is and isn't. The housing revenue account is a ring-fenced account that is self-funded mainly by council dwelling rents and expenditure, and it consists of staffing to manage the provision, repairs and maintenance costs of the housing stock, capital financing costs, so that's the financing that we need for building new houses and also the maintenance. So that's capital financing cost to service the debt and revenue contributions towards the capital programme, including the work we want to do on decarbonisation and on new developments. So this report details the final housing revenue account budget proposals for 2023-24, and also sets out the proposed rents and service charges for next year as well. As part of the Rented Homes Wales Act, we are required to give 2 months' notice of any increase in to council tenants, which is why it's coming to Cabinet now. The council, in setting the rent levels or proposed rent levels for next year, has complied with the policy for social housing rents, which was issued by Welsh Government on 17th of November 2022. The maximum allowable increase or uplift has been set by Welsh Government at 6.5% for 23-24. The council has also got to ensure that it's got a viable 30-year housing business plan, and following careful analysis and financial modelling, it's proposed that rents in the Vale are increased by 5.5%. So that's at 1% below the maximum allowed by Welsh Government, to reflect. It's always a balance, isn't it, in terms of deciding where those levels come in. And this reflects not only the current financial situation that we're facing with high interest rates and inflationary cost pressures in delivering those current priorities and commitments, but also to ensure that the council can deliver on its ambitious plans to build new council housing at pace and at scale, to decarbonise the council housing stock by 2030, and to ensure that funding is available to meet the requirements of the new Welsh Housing Quality Standard, which is due to be introduced in 2023. When I was talking about it being a balance in relation to what we want to achieve, as I said, we want to achieve good quality housing for our tenants. We also want to build new homes because we recognise that one of the most important things we can do for local people's well-being is to ensure they have sustainable housing or homes that which they can stay in, because an awful lot of housing these days is quite insecure and is very disruptive to people's lives. So, but the other thing that we want to do is that, as we recognise the financial pressure that council tenants are facing and the impact that rent increases may have, particularly on those who don't receive any form of housing subsidy, we also want to build in a range of different measures and types of support for tenants. So what we will commit to is that there will be no evictions due to financial hardship in 23-24, where tenants engage with us. So that's if people are finding themselves in difficulties, we will have support available, and as long as they are working with us to find ways forward, that we won't take action against them. We will continue to provide targeted support. So again, if people are finding things difficult, we will look to support them and find them support from other agencies. We will maximise the use of all suitable housing stock, and that is speeding up voids and bringing empty properties back into use. We'll undertake a joint campaign to engage with tenants experiencing financial difficulties. We'll build on existing engagement with tenants on rent setting. We'll commit to invest in existing homes to keep them safe, warm and affordable to live in. And we'll work in partnership with tenants, Welsh Government funders and other partners to develop a consistent approach to affordability. Finally, we'll participate in an assurance exercise in April 2023 to reflect on the application of the rent policy to date. So again, engaging with tenants and other organisations to see whether or not our rent policy is as it should be and delivering what we want it to. Welsh Government requires all local authorities with retained housing stock to submit a fit-for-purpose annual 30-year housing business plan, and that ours will actually be brought to Cabinet for approval on the 19th of January 2023, before going on to full council on the 7th of March on 2023 as well. The housing business plan will support the application of the major repairs allowance grant in 23-24, which is expected to be somewhere around 2.773 million. I think in everything that we're discussing at the moment, there are significant cost increases, and this is the case with capital financing next year. That's due to additional borrowing, increase in interest rates, increasing staffing, and that's to provide money advisors and income officers to support tenants with financial help and advice, and higher repair costs due to an increase in supply costs and schedule of rates. The report is detailed and it will be going to council on the 11th of this month, and I would imagine that we will have a much more complete discussion at that. But there are a few amendments that I would like to make to the report. And first of all, if we look at paragraph 2.7, the HRA reserve of 1.025 million as at 31st of March should be 2025, not 2024, as stated in the report. There's an error at paragraph 5.2. If I can just find that, the capital expenditure from revenue account, the CERA, is 17.187 million, not 16.762 million. In paragraph 5.3, the projected reserve is 1.025 million, not 1.051 million. And in the, let's have a quick go back to the Vale Community Alarm Service, the VCAS, if you look at paragraph 2.25, these figures weren't available at that time, and this is a charge which forms part of the inclusive rent, but is separately identifiable. So the charges for alarm monitoring and alarm maintenance will be added and shown separately in the report that goes to full council. So in effect, the alarm maintenance existing charges are £2.20 per week and will move to £3.50 per week. That's payable by the tenant, and the alarm monitoring charge, which is currently £1.29 per week and is moving to £1.38 per week. That is funded by the Housing Support Grant for eligible service users. So those need to be either amended or added in. There have been a few queries in terms of affordability of the rents, and that's actually covered in paragraph 1.4. And I think we'll be discussing this more when we are in council. That it is very much a balance between being able to deliver our ambitious targets, but also making sure that our rents are affordable for residents. And so there is a Housemarque affordability tool which compares housing rents with local registered social landlords, such as housing associations. Council housing rents were found to be less than the average rent charged by most RSLs for most property sizes and types. In addition, council tenants pay less than 30% of their income on rent. So in assessing it, the charge for housing would take up less than 30% of somebody's income, which is a common affordability test. And obviously, if you compared rented council properties to rented private sector properties, then there literally is no comparison. It is much more affordable in terms of council housing. So if we look at the recommendations going forward, actually, no, I need to just double check one. I said that I would miss something out. I'd like to draw your attention to the next steps, paragraphs 2.26. And there are just a couple of words that I would like to amend just to make sure that it's completely clear. 2.26, it says the Cabinet's final budget proposals will be considered by Council at a meeting to be held on the 11th January. That should be the Cabinet's final HRA budget proposals. Obviously, the Council's full budget proposals will be discussed subsequently. 2.27, it says a housing business plan will be brought to Cabinet on the 19th of January for approval, which we've mentioned earlier, and reported to full council for approval, and that should be the 6th of March 2023. I think this must have been drafted when we were looking at options for dates. 2.28, these proposals will be reflected in the final capital proposals and capital strategy and treasury management strategy, which is due to be reported to Cabinet on 27th of February 2023. I think what I would say there is that the capital proposals, capital strategy, etc., will go to Cabinet on the 19th of January. it will then go all the way around scrutinies and will come back to Cabinet before going on to Council on the 6th of March. The date at which it comes back to Cabinet is not quite set yet, so we will say it will come back to Cabinet and then on to Council on the 6th of March. So 6 needs to be amended, and then as paragraph 2.29 says, the rent increases will take effect from the 1st of April 2023. So moving back to recommendations, recommendation 1 is that Cabinet recommends that Council approves the final housing revenue account budget proposals for 2023-24 as set out below, and that the table is set out there. 2, that Cabinet recommends that Council approves an average rent increase of 5.5% be as set out in paragraphs 2.17. 3, Cabinet recommends that Council approves the increase suggested for other services as set out in the table below and in paragraphs 2.18 to 2.25. And in that we need to add the VCAS charges as I set out in the amendments. 4, that Cabinet recommends that Council approves all changes to rents and service charges be implemented from 1st of April 2023, with the first week of April being a non-chargeable rent week, and that increased notices are sent to tenants 2 months in advance of the new charges coming into effect as required by the Rented Homes Act, Wales Act. And 5, Cabinet is recommended to approve the urgent decision procedure as set out in section 15.14 of the Council's Constitution be used in order for final housing revenue account budget proposals 2022-23 to be referred to full Council on the 11th of January 2023. And on that basis, it in effect means that every single member of the Council will be able to participate in a discussion over this report. Those are the recommendations. I'd so move.
And I'll second those, Leader.
Thank you. Are we all content with that? Excellent.
Yes.
Right, just get myself organised again. On to agenda item 4, and that's over to the Cabinet Member for Education, Arts and Welsh Language. I hope your voice holds up, Rhiannon, and that's to do with the proposal to transfer specialist resource base at Llandoch Primary to Ysgol y Ddraig. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. You may remember that we discussed this last year, went out for consultation, and obviously it's now come back for our approval after some points have been made by members of the public. These obviously have been addressed and will be found in the appendices. So the background to this is that Llandoch Primary School had hosted the local authority provision for pupils with speech and language barriers to learning since 2002. The provision is made up of classes for pupils aged 4 to 11 with speech, language and communication needs. The staff are employed by the local authority. This was one of the questions that were raised. And the school receives a resource budget based on the number of pupils attending the provision. They're dual registered with their home schools. They spend 3 days in the resource base, 2 days in their home school. This enables them to be taught and then practice specific speech and language skills within the base and then practice them through the week in their home schools. They're supported in mainstream by the resource-based learning support assistants and teachers. And by supporting pupils in the mainstream schools, this allows speech and language skills, demonstrations, support and training to go into schools on a weekly basis, allowing specialist staff to model strategies, and it enables the school to build up their own strategies in dealing with children who may not necessarily need to go to the resource base, but may have some difficulties. So we're spreading good practice, which is obviously laudable. It also means the children remain fully included with their mainstream school, and it was designed in conjunction with the NHS Speech and Language Therapy Service, so joined up thinking. Ysgol y Ddraig is an English medium community school in Llantwit Major, catering for 3 to 11-year-olds. An area of the building has been allocated for the SRB, and it will follow the same model as I've described to you above. And in fact, obviously, this has already been running for some months, maintaining the focus on pupils with speech, language and communication needs. We had to adapt the model because of COVID, because, you know, the number of children you could have within the classroom, etc., etc. And obviously we're mitigating the risk of spreading infection between schools. So children have been spending alternate weeks in the base and their mainstream schools rather than 3 days in one and 2 days in the other. But now that the restrictions have been lifted, and because of the facilities available at Ysgol y Ddraig, and it's obviously a more central location, it will be possible to revert to the original model of 3 days in one school and 2 days in the other. So in June, this went out for consultation on the proposal to transfer the provision from Llanrock Primary School to Ysgol y Ddraig from January 2023. The Council's Cabinet considered the report and determined to progress the proposal. Statutory notice went out on the 9th of November last year. I know it seems strange to think of 2022 as last year, and any person could object. There were no formal objections during the consultation process. However, there were 2 late reps, but these have been dealt with. One was about additional travel time for staff and associated expense, and the other was associated expenses. But a response has been provided despite the fact that they were outside the consultation period. So this will be found in Appendix F. So the recommendations are: the Cabinet considers the report, the consultation report, which is Appendix A, the consultation response report, which is Appendix C, and other appendices included as part of the report. So the equality impact assessment, community impact assessment, the statutory notice, and objection period summary report. That's 1. Number 2, that we approve the implementation of the proposal to make regulated alterations under section 2.3 of the School Organisation Code to relocate the SRB to Ysgol y Ddraig from this month going forward. And at number 3, the use of paragraph 15.4.2 for Council's Constitution urgent decision procedure be authorised in order to avoid unnecessary delay. We'd like to see this formally up and running as soon as possible. People happy with those recommendations? Excellent. Thank you very much. Hand back to you, Liz.
Thanks. I'm happy to second that formally, so that can go forward. With a new comment, I was remembering going to visit Ysgol y Ddraig when it was a fairly new school. Super facility, and I can remember it was one of our first schools that had underfloor heating, and the children had decided that, and they so liked the school and wanted to keep it tidy, that they decided that they were going to wear slippers in school. So all these children were taking their shoes off as they got in school, and then where they were coming out of the classroom to do some sort of extra work just outside the class, you'd see groups of them lying on the floor, collaborating on, reading or doing separate pieces of work, because it was so comfy to lie on the sort of the heated floor. The whole atmosphere, and I'm sure that the children in the resource space will thrive there. So a really good move. Gwyn, you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
local member.
Yes, Leader. I just like to add that having spoken to staff at the school, this has been an extremely successful transition to Ysgol y Ddraig, and quite simply, they're really settled in very, very well. So I'm delighted to support.
Excellent. Super. Thanks, Gwyn. Well, I have no urgent items. Neither do I have any part 2 items. So today, probably one of our fastest cabinet meetings of this administration. I'll thank you all for your attendance and close the meeting.